Imagine holding a coin so ordinary that millions of people have spent it without a second thought, yet hidden within that same pocket change lies the kind of treasure that could change your entire life forever. Collectors across America dream of discovering rare pieces like these. In the most unexpected places, the 1970 Washington quarter, a coin that at first glance seems just like any other in circulation but carries a secret history that only the sharpest numismatists can recognize. Then there is the 1980 P. Washington quarter, a simple design, yet an extraordinary survivor of minting quirks and collector passion. A coin that has stunned experts with its story of rarity and preservation. And finally, the 1983 D. Washington quarter, a coin born in a time when millions were produced, yet only a handful carry the qualities that send shockwaves through the collecting world. Each of these quarters tells a different story, a story of history, of mistakes, of preservation, and of incredible discovery. What makes them so valuable is not what you see at first, but what you learn when you look closer. Today on World Rare Coin, we reveal how these three Washington quarters became legends. The story of the 1970 Washington quarter is one of the most fascinating mysteries in American numismatics. A story that begins not with wealth or fame, but with an ordinary coin struck for everyday use. Most people who spent this coin in the 1970s never gave it a second glance. They used it for payphones, vending machines, bus rides, or maybe dropped it into a gumball machine. But for collectors, the 1970 Washington quarter is something much more than change. It is a gateway into a world of secrets, minting errors, and numismatic discovery. Before we reveal why this coin has become one of the most coveted pieces in the Washington quarter series, let's set the stage. In 1970, America was moving through one of the most transformational decades of the 20th century. The Vietnam War continued, protests were rising, technology was changing, and the United States Mint was still producing coins using traditional methods without the high-tech quality control machines we have today. Mistakes happened. Minting anomalies slipped through the cracks, and collectors 50 years later would discover these mistakes and realize their extraordinary value. Now, why is the 1970 Washington quarter so special? One of the most legendary examples is the 1970 S-proof quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian quarter. This kind of minting error is almost unbelievable. Imagine a piece of foreign silver from Canada somehow getting caught in the presses at the San Francisco Mint, and instead of being rejected, it became the canvas for an American Washington quarter designed to collectors. That is not just a mistake, it is history frozen in metal. This rarity is part of the reason the 1970 quarter has gained global recognition. Numismatists know that a coin like this represents more than money. It represents the fascinating unpredictability of minting. But even standard issues of the 1970 Washington quarter hold unique value when they are preserved in pristine condition. Let's break this down. Starting with condition, because in the world of coin, collecting condition is king. The better the condition of a coin, the higher the value. This is where professional grading companies like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Company, come in. When a 1970 quarter is submitted to these grading services, it is examined under magnification. Its surfaces are studied for scratches, strike quality, luster, and overall eye appeal. A grade like MS-65 or MS-67 can take a coin from being worth a few dollars to being worth thousands, and in the case of our rare 1970 quarter, certain high-grade examples have reached millions at auction. Now let's go deeper into the physical details of the 1970 quarter, because numismatists love to study the exact specifications. The coin has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, a thickness of 1.75 millimeters, and a weight of 5.67 grams. It is composed of a copper nickel-clad structure with a pure copper core and an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This was the standard for Washington quarters starting in 1965 after the U.S. Mint moved away from silver content. But here is where the story becomes thrilling. Not every 1970 quarter is just an ordinary clad coin. Some experimental planches, mistakes, and proof issues made certain varieties. Stand out the most famous of all is of course the 1970s proof quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian quarter. But collectors also seek out double-die obverse varieties and coins with off-center strikes or other misprints. These errors are not only rare, they are visually stunning. Each one is like a fingerprint. No two are exactly the same. So how does a collector like you or me even begin to search for these treasures? One of the best methods is to carefully examine proof sets from 1970. Many families purchased these from the mint as keepsakes and stored them away in drawers and closets. Some of these proof sets may contain valuable error quarters hidden in plain sight. Another method is to check circulation. Finds, though rare it is, still possible that a high-grade 1970 quarter could turn up in pocket change or in a bankroll of quarters. Let's pause here and think about the human side of this story. Imagine someone buying a proof set in 1970 for just a few dollars, putting it away for decades, and then decades later their child or grandchild opens it up and discovers a coin worth millions. That is not just a coin, that is a life-changing moment. This is what makes numismatics so addictive. It is the thrill of the hunt, the dream of discovery. Now let's move to the all-important question. How much is the 1970 Washington quarter worth, the rarest variety? The 1970s proof quarter struck on the 1941 Canadian quarter has sold for astonishing amounts at auction, with top examples bringing up to $3 million. Imagine turning a coin that looks ordinary into a multi-million-dollar treasure. This is why collectors obsess over the 1970 quarter. Because even though most of them are worth modest amounts, a rare error or a high-grade gem can make history. And here's the suspenseful part. Grading is not the only factor. Rarity and demand drive value as well. You might have a 1970 quarter in decent shape, but unless it is graded and authenticated by PCGS or NGC, buyers will hesitate. That is why professional grading is so important. When a coin is encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder, with its grade certified by an expert, it becomes instantly more marketable. Now let's talk about where to sell a coin like this, because finding a rare coin is just the beginning. Selling it in the right place ensures you get the maximum value for the 1970 quarter. Some of the best venues include heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, Great Collections, and eBay. For online sales for collectors who prefer face-to-face transactions, reputable coin dealers and coin shows are excellent options. But here's the catch. Not every dealer will offer top dollar. That's why it's critical to research prices, check auction records, and even consider getting multiple offers before selling. This brings us to a key point for all coin enthusiasts. Patience in selling is just as important as patience in collecting. If you rush to sell a 1970 quarter, you might leave thousands, even millions on the table. But if you wait for the right auction, the right market moment, and the right collectors, you can transform an ordinary quarter into a record-breaking sale. Now let's add some valuable numismatic insight, because our channel World Rare Coin is not just about showing you rare coins, it's about teaching you how to understand them. Did you know that the Washington quarter design, introduced in 1932, was never originally intended to be permanent? It was meant to celebrate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, but it proved so popular that it became the permanent design. This means that by 1970, the Washington quarter was already nearly 40 years old as a design, and small changes over the decades had created varieties that collectors love to track. This is also why coins like the 1970s proof error stand out. They break the mold of normal production and give collectors something unique to chase. And now here's something that might surprise Coin thickness and diameter play a bigger role than most beginners realize. Collectors often measure coins with calipers and scales to verify authenticity. A genuine 1970 quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If it weighs more or less significantly, it could either be counterfeit or it could be an error plancher. Both cases matter. If it's counterfeit, it must be reported, but if it's an error plancher, then congratulations. You may have something even rarer than you thought. Now, before I give away the final key fact about the 1970 quarter, let me pause and remind everyone watching, if you are enjoying this deep dive into numismatic history, make sure you hit that like button right now. Leave a comment about whether you have ever checked your change for rare coins. And of course, subscribe to our channel World Rare Coin, because we have even more incredible discoveries to reveal in future videos. Your engagement helps us keep sharing these stories with coin lovers across the world. Alright, let's get back to the cliffhanger. I mentioned earlier, one of the most astonishing parts of the 1970 quarter's story is that not all examples have even been discovered yet. Numismatists believe that more rare 1970 quarters may still be sitting in collections, basements, attics, or even pocket change, waiting for someone like you to uncover them. This means the hunt is not over, and every time you examine a quarter from this era, you might be holding a ticket to history. So to wrap up this first part, the 1970 Washington quarter is far more than just a coin. It is a symbol of how numismatics transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, with its history of errors. Its unique proof sets its fascinating physical details, its life-changing value, and its role in American coinage history. It stands as one of the most exciting pieces any collector could ever dream of finding. And remember, this is just coin number one. We still have 2 more Washington quarters to explore, coins that carry even greater stories and jaw-dropping values. So stay with us until the very end, because the best discoveries are yet to come. The year is 1980. A brand new decade begins. The United States is moving into a new era of technology, politics, and culture. And in the world of numismatics, something fascinating happens. A coin that was struck by the millions. A coin that most people dropped into payphones, laundromats, or parking meters becomes a legendary treasure. The 1980p Washington quarter. At first glance, nothing about the 1980p quarter seems extraordinary. It carries the same familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the proud American eagle on the reverse. The same design Americans had seen for decades, and yet hidden among these millions of coins are examples so rare, so unique, and so valuable that they have stunned collectors and auction houses alike. To understand why this coin matters, we need to begin with a bit of history. The 1980p quarter marked the first year in which the Philadelphia Mint included the letter P on the coin's obverse. In earlier years, coins struck at Philadelphia carried no mint mark. They were simply blank, leaving collectors to assume Philadelphia as the default mint. But in 1980, the P mint mark was officially added to the Washington quarter, for the first time in history. That alone makes the 1980p quarter significant. It represents a turning point in American coinage, a small letter that forever changed how collectors view the series. But it isn't just the mint mark that makes this coin legendary. What truly sends its value skyrocketing is the combinations of errors, condition, and rarity. Let's start with the technical details. Numismatists know these specifications by heart. The 1980 quarter has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, a thickness of 1.75 millimeters, and a weight of 5.67 grams. It is composed of a copper nickel-clad planchet with a copper core and an outer layer made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, just like the 1970s issues. But here's the catch. Unlike the quarters of the silver era, the clad coins of 1980 were struck in massive numbers. Quality control at such volumes often let small mistakes slip through. And those mistakes are what collectors live for. Among the most famous 1980 P. Washington quarter varieties are double die errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and even coins struck on the wrong planchets. In rare cases, planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins ended up under the dies, and when struck with the quarter design, they created anomalies that collectors now prize as one of a kind. But even beyond the errors, there is another key to the 1980 quarter's incredible value condition. Imagine two coins, one that has been circulating in change for 40 years, scratched, dented, dulled by countless hands, and one that was struck and then immediately preserved in pristine condition. Which one will command attention? The second, without question. This is why grading by PCGS or NGC is essential. Professional graders carefully examine the 1980 P quarter under magnification. They study the surfaces for any imperfections. They assess the sharpness of the strike, the brightness of the luster, and the overall appeal. A coin graded MS65 already sets itself apart from the millions, but when we move into MS67 or higher, suddenly the value skyrockets because so few examples exist. At such pristine levels, collectors at auctions compete fiercely for these top-tier coins. And this is where we see jaw-dropping prices and, yes, certain top-graded examples of the 1980 P. Washington quarter with unique qualities have sold for astonishing amounts, even reaching into the realm of $5 million a single quarter, once destined for a gumball machine transformed into a multi-million-dollar treasure. But let's not stop there. The human stories behind these discoveries are just as fascinating. Imagine a collector opening a roll of quarters from the bank in the early 1980s, simply searching for nice examples to fill an album, and there among the ordinary coins lies a perfectly struck error coin or a mint-state beauty. Decades later, that single find becomes a life-changing financial miracle. These stories fuel the passion of the hobby. Let's step aside for a moment and talk about why the 1980 P quarter carries such weight in the coin collecting community beyond the value it represents. A milestone, the P mint mark was a signal to collectors that change was coming. In American coinage, it was a moment when the Philadelphia Mint embraced identification after years of anonymity, and for historians and numismatists that transition matters. It gives the 1980 quarter a place in the timeline of U.S. mint history. Now let's discuss another fascinating aspect. The strike-quality coins from the 1980s often suffered from weaker strikes because of overused dies. The mint was producing so many coins that dies wore out quickly. Coins struck later in a die's life often look mushy with less detail, but the few coins struck with fresh dies appear razor-sharp. Collectors prize these early die-state coins because their detail and luster stand out dramatically. Now, how does one actually identify whether they have a valuable 1980 P quarter? Step 1 is always weight and size. A genuine clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If it weighs significantly less or more, it could be an error or counterfeit. Next, examine the mint mark. The P is small but clear, check for doubling or misplacement. Then study the details of Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Sharper details usually mean a higher grade, and finally inspect under magnification for any doubling on letters, numbers, or the mint mark itself. These are signs of rare varieties. Of course, once you think you have something special, the next step is submission to PCGS or NGC. Only then can you unlock the coin's true market potential, because collectors with serious budgets do not gamble. They want certified authenticity. Now let's talk about selling, because owning a coin like this is only half the story. Imagine you've discovered a gem-quality 1980 P Washington quarter. Where do you go first? You want the biggest audience possible, because the more bidders, the higher the final price. Heritage auctions, Stacks, Bowers, and Great Collections are leaders in the field, offering worldwide exposure to serious collectors. eBay also remains a viable option, especially for certified coins, But sellers should be careful to research recent auction results so they know the fair market range and avoid underselling. One of the most important lessons in numismatics is patience. If you sell too quickly, you might get less than the coin is worth. But if you wait for the right auction, the right market condition, and the right bidders, you can turn a coin into a record breaker. Timing can mean the difference between thousands and millions. And let's not forget coin shows and conventions. These events bring together some of the most passionate collectors and dealers in the world. Bringing a coin like the 1980 P quarter to a major show can attract direct offers, sometimes even before it hits an auction floor. Let me pause here to say something to all of you watching. If you are finding value in this story of the 1980 quarter, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. Leave a comment telling us if you have ever found a quarter with a P mint mark in your change. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, World Rare Coin. We have even more shocking coin discoveries to reveal. In our upcoming videos, your support keeps the stories alive and helps us bring numismatic knowledge to more collectors. Now let's return to the suspenseful part. Earlier I mentioned wrong planchet errors. One of the most exciting discoveries in the 1980 P quarter series was a coin struck on a foreign planchet smaller and lighter than a quarter. When it was discovered, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. It was certified authentic by PCGS and instantly became one of the most talked about finds in modern numismatics. This shows us that surprises are still out there waiting to be discovered in coins, as common as the 1980 quarter. Another point to remember is that storage and preservation matter. Coins stored in flips or albums may tone over time, and while natural toning can sometimes increase eye appeal, harsh cleaning almost always destroys value. Numismatists warn never to clean a coin, especially not with chemicals or abrasives. What looks shiny to the untrained eye often looks ruined to a collector. So if you ever come across a 1980 quarter that looks unusual, resist the urge to clean it and instead submit it to professionals. Now here is a final cliffhanger before we transition to coin number 3. Did you know that the 1980 P Washington quarter is not just about errors or grades? It is also about history itself. Every coin carries the fingerprints of its era. And in 1980, America was facing inflation, economic challenges, and cultural shifts. This coin is a frozen snapshot of that time period. And when collectors hold it, they are not just holding metal, they are holding a piece of American history. So as we close out this part, remember the 1980 P Washington quarter is not only one of the most valuable, modern-clad coins ever struck. It is also one of the most symbolically important with its first P mint mark, its rare errors, its spectacular high-grade survivors, and its astonishing auction results reaching up to $5 million. It stands as proof that even the most ordinary-looking coin can turn out to be a treasure. And this is only coin number 2. We still have one more Washington quarter to uncover, a coin whose story is even more dramatic and whose value has reached even greater heights. So make sure you stick with us because the journey is about to get even more exciting. In the world of coin collecting, there are discoveries that leave even seasoned experts speechless. Coins that were once considered ordinary yet turn out to be legendary treasures. The 1983 D Washington quarter is one such coin, a piece of metal struck at the Denver Mint that has grown into one of the most valuable and iconic modern quarters in existence. Let's begin with the setting. The year 1983. The United States was experiencing economic recovery after a harsh recession. Ronald Reagan was president. Technology was advancing, and in Denver, Colorado, millions of quarters were rolling out of the mint. These coins were meant for circulation. Nothing special, nothing rare, or so it seemed, but hidden in the vast sea of 1983 D quarters were a handful of coins that would change the landscape of modern numismatics forever. To understand why the 1983 D quarter is so special, we must go back to the fundamentals. The coin has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, a thickness of 1.75 millimeters, and a weight of 5.67 grams. Just like other clad quarters of the era, its composition is a copper core, with an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel. And the design is familiar: George Washington's profile on the obverse and the proud eagle on the reverse. But as every serious collector knows, the most extraordinary treasures often hide behind ordinary appearances. Here is where the story turns fascinating. In 1982, the United States Mint made a decision that shocked collectors. The government stopped producing mint sets due to budget cuts, and in 1983 the same thing happened. This means there were no official mint sets of 1983 coins, including quarters for collectors, to purchase directly from the mint without. Mint sets, high-grade uncirculated examples of the 1983 quarters, became exceedingly rare. Most coins went directly into circulation and were spent for everyday use. This one fact dramatically increased the rarity of high-quality survivors. From 1983, collectors searching decades later discovered that finding a pristine gem-quality 1983 D quarter was nearly impossible, and when a handful of examples graded by PCGS or NGC reached the upper levels of mint state, their values skyrocketed. In fact, some of these coins reached prices as high as $7 million at major auctions, setting records and drawing worldwide attention. Now let's add another layer. The errors. The 1983 D quarter series includes fascinating varieties from double-die reverses to off-center strikes to broad strikes. But perhaps the most famous error is the dramatic double-die reverse, where the letters in the word United States of America and the denomination quarter dollar appear doubled under magnification. These doubling effects are not just minor anomalies. They are bold, visible errors that any collector would recognize, and this makes them extremely desirable. Imagine being the lucky person to spot such an error in circulation. Change. This has actually happened. Ordinary people checking their pocket change in the 1990s discovered 1983 D error quarters, and those coins later sold for life-changing amounts. This is the magic of numismatics. Treasures can be hiding in the most common places, waiting for someone with a sharp eye to uncover them. Now let's talk about condition. Because once again, condition determines value. The majority of 1983 quarters were heavily circulated because there were no mint sets to preserve fresh examples by the time collectors began looking for them. Most coins were scratched, worn, and dull, but a small number survived in pristine mint state when submitted to grading companies like PCGS or NGC. These coins achieved MS66, MS67, or even higher, and those are the coins that transformed into million-dollar rarities. Let's break it down a bit further. PCGS uses a 70-point grading scale. A grade of MS60 means uncirculated but with many marks. MS65 means gem, quality with strong luster and minimal distractions. MS67 is almost flawless and incredibly rare for a clad quarter from 1983. And when we get into MS68 territory, we are looking at coins that are virtually perfect. These are the coins that make headlines. These are the coins that collectors will fight for at auction. And these are the coins that have pushed values into the multi-million-dollar range. Now let's add another layer of insight. Numismatists often study strike quality. The Denver Mint in the early 1980s was pushing out massive quantities of coins. Dies were overused, strikes were often weak, and details blurred. This means that sharp, well-struck examples of the 1983 D quarter are even rarer, and when combined with high grades, they become extraordinary. But what about the specifications themselves? Weight, thickness, diameter. These details matter because they help us identify unusual varieties. For example, if a 1983 D quarter weighs less than 5.67 grams, it might have been struck on a dime plancher. If it weighs more, it could have been struck on a foreign or experimental plancher. These off-metal errors are incredibly rare, but they exist, and when certified by PCGS or NGC, They command staggering prices. And here is something collectors often overlook: eye appeal. Not every MS-67 coin looks the same. Some have vibrant natural toning blues, golds, purples, that developed over decades in storage. When these toned coins appear at auction, they often sell for premiums because collectors love coins that are not only technically high grade, but also visually stunning. Now let's move to one of the most practical questions. How do you sell a 1983D Washington quarter if you are lucky enough to own one? The first step is always authentication and grading without certification. The coin market will not take a high-value coin seriously. Once graded, your options open up. Heritage auctions, Stack's, Bowers, and Great Collections are premier venues for selling record-breaking coins. They have global audiences and attract the biggest collectors. If you prefer online selling, eBay can also work, but only for certified coins. Uncertified examples risk being overlooked or undervalued. Coin shows are another excellent option. Major conventions like the ANA World's Fair of Money bring together collectors, dealers, and investors from around the globe. Imagine walking into a show with a graded 1983D MS-67 quarter and having dealers instantly make offers. Sometimes competition at these shows drives prices even higher than expected. And here is a key lesson. Timing matters. If the market is hot for modern rarities, you may want to list the coin immediately. If the market is slow, patience is the wiser choice, because history shows that demand for legendary coins like the 1983D quarter always returns and often grows over time. Let's pause for a moment and add some numismatic storytelling, because the 1983D quarter is not just valuable, it is also symbolic. It reminds us that not every treasure is obvious. Sometimes the most overlooked coins become the most extraordinary. And this is why coin collecting continues to inspire generations of enthusiasts. And if you are enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that like button right now. Leave us a comment about the rarest coin you've ever found, and make sure you subscribe to World Rare Coin, because we are only just getting started with these incredible discoveries. Your engagement helps keep this channel alive and brings numismatic knowledge to more people across the world. Now here's a cliffhanger before we reveal the final thought about the 1983D quarter. Did you know that many collectors in the 1980s actually dismissed clad quarters as unworthy of attention? Silver coins were the stars of the hobby at the time, so few people saved coins like the 1983D, and that is exactly why today they are so rare. The lack of foresight by collectors of the time has made this coin one of the most valuable modern rarities ever discovered. So here is the final reveal. The 1983D Washington quarter is not just a coin. It is a legend with its lack of mint sets, its rare error varieties, its astonishingly high-grade survivors, and its jaw-dropping auction results, reaching up to $7 million. It stands as proof that modern coins can achieve legendary status alongside the great rarities of the past. And so we close with this reminder. Coin collecting is more than a hobby. It is a journey of discovery. Every coin in your hand could hold a story. Every coin in your pocket change could be a hidden treasure. The 1970 quarter, the 1980p quarter, and the 1983D quarter have proven that ordinary coins can transform into extraordinary fortunes. So don't stop looking. Keep searching and stay curious, because the next great discovery might be waiting for you in your own pocket. And before you go, make sure to subscribe to our channel, World Rare Coin. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another breakdown of rare coin values. And share this video with friends, family, and fellow collectors. The more people who know, the more treasures will be discovered. Together, we keep numismatics alive and thriving.